It was an FA Cup weekend, which for those of us who think the FA Cup is not anything like it used to be and isn't really important in the great scheme of things, it's really not a big deal when there's an FA Cup weekend this week. Of course, it was a little different because one of the games was the Manchester United-Liverpool game at Old Trafford. Two great clubs, two great rivals. A recent meeting in the Premier League ended 0-0, but on the whole, Manchester United have looked, since they were knocked out of the Champions League by Leipzig, they've been on the up, and they now lead the Premier League, and Liverpool have really struggled. They've gone 7 games without a win, except for one game when Aston Villa, in the previous round of the FA Cup, third round, fielded their youth team. Liverpool put a very strong team on the field and won that match. Other than that, Liverpool have been having a hard time. And I'm going to discuss Liverpool and their problems in depth with John Giles, my guest, who's with us. Among the problems being failure to beat in the Premier League, Burnley losing at home last week in midweek. Fulham away, they scrambled a 1-1 draw. West Brom at home. West Brom got a 1-1 draw. Newcastle United 0-0 against Liverpool. So Liverpool have a real problem now, and we're going to discuss that. But before we do, John, before we talk about Liverpool and get into some depth about this crisis, we have views. They're not the same, but people, I'm sure, will want to hear your views. The Manchester United, top of the league now, and they have amassed a lot of points away from home. Very good record, not just not getting beat, but winning games. And Pogba, yesterday, I thought played really well and applied himself to the game. Scored the winner at Fulham in midweek. What do you think of Manchester United's kind of surge, you'd have to call it, to the top since they were knocked out of the Champions League by Leipzig?
Well, obviously they've done an awful lot better, Eamon. I think I've always felt about Manchester United, I think they have a lot of very, very talented players. And it's a question of being organised and doing all the things that you want to do to get the best from them. I'm not so sure that happens with Solskjaer, that he does that. But what he does do, he doesn't tell them anything wrong either. Because I think he just picks them, lets them go out and play, and they're free to play.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the time that can be very, very successful if you've got the right players, and he has got a lot of good players. They wouldn't be as well organised as I think they should be. But there again, they have the players to do it, and they are doing it at the moment, Eamon, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get players like Fernandes and Rashford and Greenwood, now there's not many teams have that type of player. And they are on a run and doing it exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Exceptionally well.
And
I don't think Pogba is playing as well as people have said he's
playing.
But I think he's playing better than he has done himself in the past. So in relation to his own displays, I mean, I think they made him yesterday man of the match. I wouldn't have made him man of the match, for example. But anyway, that's Pogba. But I think Manchester United definitely have a lot of youngish players and talented players who are allowed to play. Most of the time that works. Sometimes you lose out on it. But so far, so good for them this season, that's for sure.
You could say of Pogba, John, that he set the bar for himself, and he set it pretty low.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So,
the other thing I know you don't. No, I don't want to be too hard on him in any way. No. But you have to be realistic when you're watching the game and honest. You're honest in what you say. Yeah. I'm honest in what I say. And I think when Pogba plays better than he did, then he's brought them back and he's brought Manchester United back. I don't believe that. I mean, Fernandes has done more than any probably on as a single player.
Yes.
But that's the way it runs, Eamon.
Okay, now, John, the big question really, and the big surprise this season is the fact that Liverpool are fourth in the table, the 6 points behind Manchester United, and they're really struggling. my own belief is this. Before I want to find out, and I'm sure our listeners want to find out what you think. My own belief is that the injuries to Van Dijk, Gomez, and their, Jota as well as a front player, have hurt them. The Van Dijk thing, I think, has hurt them badly. I think having to play Fabinho and Henderson, say, as they did recently in a few games, as a central defensive pairing, works okay because they're fabulous players, both of them. The problem is they're fabulous players in midfield as well. And if you take them out of midfield and make them the emergency central defenders, then you've lost an awful lot from midfield. And I think Henderson is huge there. And I think that the injuries they've had to key players has affected them, and the loss of Van Dijk has affected them. But there are other factors as well. The behaviour of Klopp maybe is something we'll talk about, and it hasn't been really sterling. He's done some mad things. John, you played in a great team that played at this level, that won the Premier League or the First Division as it used to be. Your take on Liverpool's struggles, let's call them struggles. There's not many people I listen to about football. Graham Souness is one of them, you're another. And all he could offer last week after the Burnley defeat on Sky, and as I say, I have a lot of time for Graham, is they look shot. They look tired. The other thing he said was generalised stuff about, it's one thing winning the Premier League, but if you want to be real champions, you've got to retain it. And he's right about that, but it wasn't very specific. John, your take on Liverpool and their troubles?
Well, it's like most things, it can be complicated, Eamon, when something like this happens, haven't done so well last year, and not just well, brilliantly over the last two seasons.
Yeah.
Now you're into a new season. Every season is new. No matter what you've done the previous season, it doesn't really count. You have to be up to do it. I think that's what Graham was trying to say.
Yeah.
That, like when you do win the Championship and the European Cup like they did, Eamon, it is difficult to maintain the intensity to do what's needed to be done again, because the season starts especially the season starts so quickly around. So, like when you're going for it in the way that they were going for it last year and the year before, but even last year, where it finished prematurely because they were so far ahead of everybody else, it's very difficult to pick it up again.
Yes.
At the start of the season. And if you go back to when they won the league game in early last season, as soon as they won the league, not just starting this season, starting then, results went down.
They did, yeah.
Because you need that intensity to do it. You can't pretend that this is, we really need this win. It has to be for real.
Yeah.
And when they were doing it, then obviously they did it. Then there was a slump. And it's very, very difficult to pick it up. That's one of the reasons, I think, when the season starts so quickly again. I think the second season would be the loss of the players that they've had at the back and a few other positions. I don't necessarily agree with your take on it.
Yeah,
because I think the lads I think they have enough good midfield players. Like I thought Wijnaldum yesterday was excellent. They brought Thiago in that position. Actually, it's the lads up front, maybe not getting the supply they got last year, haven't scored the goals, Eamon.
Yeah, although Salah
they haven't, like, if you look at the lads at the back, they've conceded very few goals, Henderson and Fabinho between them. Yeah. They've conceded very few goals. The lads up front haven't in. Now, I think there's a reason for that as well. I think with the lads at the back, right, the Gomez and Van Dijk, it definitely does release the other players, and they're more secure in what they do, right?
Yes.
Now, I think what's happened this season, first of all, the way Klopp plays with the two fullbacks, Robertson and Alexander, who have been excellent at what they did. They created more goals last year than anybody else, right? But they do that because they're in a very good team, and as fullbacks, I think they're gambling an awful lot by getting ahead of the ball when they have the ball, even if it's on the far side of the field, Eamon.
Yes.
I'd be old-fashioned. I think you're a bit old-fashioned in fullbacks. Fullbacks, to me, are defenders, first of all, and attackers, second of all. And when a fullback is what he is, when the ball's on the other side of the field, for example, they get into a cover position.
Yes.
Now, if you watch Liverpool play, when Alexander's on the ball, for example, Robertson takes a position, and it's like, I'm going to get this ball, and he's way ahead of the ball. I mean, if you go back yesterday to the first goal, when Rashford played a beautiful ball out to the right side, Robertson was near the halfway line.
Yes.
Because he's now expecting to get it. Like, what I would encourage fullbacks to do is say, expect your team to lose it. So you're in a cover position.
Yeah.
Vice versa with Alexander on the other side of the field, Damon. Right. So I think they've been losing their players. These lads are not getting the supply of the ball that they used to get to make the goals. In fact, it's costing them goals.
Right.
And if you look at the match yesterday, there was a long ball for the second ball from Greenwood, I think, out to Rashford, who went through to score.
Yeah.
If you look at it, Alexander is beyond the halfway line.
Yes.
Expecting the ball to come on the side of the pitch, and he'd be on the attack. That's what they did with their best team. And they did it last year and did it brilliantly. They're not able to do it. I don't think the players are there this year are playing in a certain way or playing as well as they did last year. I think that's the main fault, regardless of who's playing centre half or who's playing in midfield. I think if Gomez and Van Dijk definitely give them that extra bit of defensive quality.
Well, they release Henderson and Fabinho, John, into midfield. Now, I think we probably differ slightly. I think Henderson, for a long time we agreed about Henderson, wasn't quite it. He was a poor man, Steven Gerrard, maybe. But I think in the last 2 seasons, Henderson has been immense. He plays more forward than the midfield. He's not behind the ball all the time. He's getting forward. He injects tempo into the game. His assists would be good. He scored a couple of important goals. I remember one he scored at Southampton, which gave them a win last season. I think Henderson's a huge player for the club, for the team. Very, very influential player. And I think he's missed, even against Burnley and again yesterday. No Henderson leaves a big hole in the team. Now you've got no Van Dijk, you've got no Henderson. Then I think you begin to have a problem, John.
Well, I'm listening to you, Eamon, and I don't agree with you.
No, absolutely. Well, we don't want to hear... we want to hear your view.
Well, we're having a discussion on it. I don't see Henderson as such a valuable player. Yeah. I think he's very good at what he does. But if I had a choice between Thiago and Henderson, I'd take Thiago all the time.
Yeah,
I think Wijnaldum is a very, very good player. I don't think they're losing that much. I think they're losing a lot at the back, but they're not losing a lot of goals, so it's not costing them that much. I don't think they're losing that much in midfield through Henderson.
Right.
To be quite honest.
Well, that's a fundamental thing, fundamental disagreement we have. I would agree with. I think Wijnaldum Gini Wijnaldum's a very interesting player. He started at Newcastle actually, and he's got a lot of qualities that don't always emerge when you watch him play at Liverpool. If you watch him play for Holland, he's on the ball a lot more. He scores goals for Holland. He has scored important goals for Liverpool, John. But he's
not many.
Not many. No.
And neither is Henderson. Just to go back on Henderson, I mean.
Yeah.
Henderson scores very few goals.
Oh, very few. No.
Very few. And he makes very few.
He's a driver.
Oh. Well, he drives in a certain way, but he's not.
Okay.
I mean, if I had a choice between Henderson and Thiago, Frank, I'd take him. But anyway, I think we should give up on that. We're not going to agree on that, and we get on with what we're saying. I think that Liverpool also, Eamon, when you've won what they've won, it is very difficult to do it. I think Salah scored 2 good goals yesterday. I don't think Salah's been really. I don't think Firmino's been doing it. I don't think Mane has been doing it. Now they're 3 of the top players that they had last year. They're not they're not losing that many goals at the back because of the loss of Van Dijk. And of course, he's a terrific player. He's a great player, and he'll always be a loss. Yeah. But they're not losing that many goals. But they're not scoring the goals, Eamon.
No, they're not. And that's been the major problem. If you look at those teams at the bottom, West Brom at home, 1-1. Fulham away, 1-1. Newcastle away, 0-0. Burnley home, 0-1. So you're right. You've identified a major problem. That the
there's two things in it. I think the fullbacks are taking too many chances because they're not doing what they were doing, and they're not scoring the goals to do it. Because we can talk about midfield, we can talk about the back, but these are the lads who carried the team. Well, they didn't carry the team. They were hugely important to be scoring the goals that they did, and that's the fact. Now, obviously, maybe the lads are not making the goals as well because they've got a few players missing than they did last season. There's lots of things can happen in
Yeah, on that point, John.
Yeah.
Alexander Arnold had something like 20 something assists.
Yes.
Last year, he's got this season so far. Alexander Arnold has got 4 assists.
Yes.
So that's a problem. All right.
But that's what I said early on when I started off with Raymond.
Yeah.
If he made 20 assists last season, doing what they do and getting the balls under and anticipating it to go to both him and Robertson, the two between them create a lot of goals. They're actually losing goals for them this year.
Yes. Yep. Now
you lost yesterday. Robertson and Thing were at fault in a major way for at least two of the goals from Manchester United. So it's an all-round thing. And then so you also have to take in the psychological thing, having done what they did, Eamon, to maintain the intensity that they had over the last 2 years to do what needs to be done. And I think obviously we spoke privately the other day. I mean, if you go back, I think at times you have to increase the pool by getting 1 or 2 new players in.
Yes, and I want to come to that, John. I want to come to Klopp and Salah. Klopp, I have to say, I watched him at Burnley, against Burnley rather, at Anfield last week, and he had a row with Sean Dyche, the Burnley coach. I like Dyche. I admire him. He's kept him in the Premier League for 6 years. He's got nothing. They never buy a real player. He's just one of those great football guys. And Klopp, and he had a fight, and Dyche walked away from him and with contempt threw his arms up in the air and just walked away from him. Klopp was like a little boy running up the tunnel after him. I think Klopp, I question a couple of things about him, John. One of them is this. They had the teams he picks against Burnley last week at home in a match they really, really needed to win. He had Oxlade-Chamberlain, Divock Origi, and all kinds of things, leaving very good players. It was a half a team he picked. It didn't make any sense. Against Aston Villa's youth team, and Villa had said they were going to play their youth team in the previous round of the FA Cup, he played the strongest team, which was incredible. Guys who might need a rest. But in the Champions League game against Midtjylland, a Danish team, which was a dead rubber, it was the last. They were guaranteed to top the group. It was away from home. They were guaranteed to top the Champions League group. He played all his best players, and that's where Jota got injured. Now, when he was asked about it, he said, we get 2.5 million sterling for winning every Champions League group game, and that's what we were after. He said, this isn't my decision. This is Fenway Sports, who are the owners' decision. I can't do anything about it. Now, I'd question that, John, in a big way. He shouldn't be putting his best team out only when he has to.
Well, it's a difficult situation, Eamon. I wouldn't be surprised if the money people told him to do that.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if he was I don't think he would have as much power at the club as you would imagine him to have.
Yes.
Because I did see an article where he was writing a couple of weeks ago, where he has to ask for the money, Eamon.
Yes.
And he's not always given it. He actually said that.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be the boss that we all, with a lot of managers, expect him to be.
Yes.
Right? So I would believe him
now
when he said that.
Yeah.
Now, and I go, and again, this is a very different. Like, if you look at all the things that he's done at Liverpool, then he's done a tremendous job, and you're a great admirer.
Yes.
I think he's done a great job. I mean, the fact that he played a team against Villa that didn't, Okay, he mightn't have done it, but this is a strange season where you have to. There's so many games coming on top of each other, really on top of each other. That's a matter of judgment in the career there, 5 years, which he probably made a mistake on. Some of the things he mightn't have had control on. I'd forgive him for that.
Right. Okay.
Because this is a difficult, really, really difficult time.
Yes, it is.
In relation to all the things that he's done.
Okay, let me go to another thing that I know you think is serious, and it's Mo Salah.
Yes.
Mo Salah, they didn't have Henderson, and they wanted a captain. He gave the armband to Trent Alexander-Arnold, 22-year-old, gave him the captaincy. Afterwards, Mo Salah publicly said he was very disappointed not to be made captain. And he regarded it as an insult. And then, of course, that came in the period, it's only about 3-4 weeks ago,
yes.
where there was speculation in the press about Salah going to Barca or Real or moving on. And there was a flurry of speculation. Now, your take on that, John?
Well, what I read of it, Eamon, I think there was a lot of truth in it. Sometimes you read things in the paper and you think, nah, that's a lot of rubbish. He did make a little bit of a fuss about not being captain, and he did complain about something else as well, Eamon. That was odd, to say odd in the least, and it definitely struck me as this is a player who has an agent and has been tapped up somehow.
Right.
I really believe that.
Yeah.
Because the statements he made they weren't press statements. They weren't for people from the press. It was coming out from him, and he didn't actually make the statements in England. He made them abroad, but obviously they're going to come back.
I think his brother. Some of the stuff was attributed to his brother.
Yes. Well, that's usually a way of doing things when you want to do it. But he was asked in the front paper a few questions himself, which he didn't say, which he could have said. In my opinion, no, there's no truth in what I say. I'm happy at Liverpool. I've no intentions of moving.
Yeah,
he didn't say that, and it definitely struck me. This is a typical situation where somebody's being tapped up.
Yeah,
that's bad. I mean, as you know, a morale in a team. It's very hard to define what morale is, but it's usually, in my opinion, it's about a group of lads with the manager getting on with each other, doing everything for the team, and really, really looking to do what's best for the team.
Yeah, and we're all in this. We're all in this together.
We're all in this together.
We win together. We lose together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's fragile, Eamon. It's fragile. And again, I was talking to Julie. I had an experience of it in a certain way when Don Revie left Leeds United.
Yeah.
Brian Clough came in. We were a very, very strong group, Eamon. A very, very strong group. Very close together. We just won the league, right? Cloughie came in, and 44 days it crumbled.
Yeah.
Mainly because Brian Clough picked on two players to praise and laud in front of the other players. And I won't name names, but they were the two players that they were the least
respected,
that should have been affected in the way they did.
Yeah, Alan Clark, I'd say we wouldn't, but never mind.
You can guess away.
Okay.
Right, and you're far out. I'm one other.
Yeah.
Right, Eamon, we were gone.
Yeah.
As a group, we were gone. This is after 9 years, 10 years of what we were doing. The slightest thing can stop it. And I think in the Salah situation, actually, there was an incident a few weeks ago, Eamon, when they were beating Palace 7-0.
Yes,
do you remember
7,
that?
Yeah.
And Mane was taken off.
Yes.
Subbed, and they put Salah on. Do you remember Salah's reaction going off?
Was Salah going off or going on?
He was going off.
Oh, right, to put Mane on there.
Sorry, Mane was going off. Sorry, Emmett. Mane was going off.
And Salah was going on.
Salah was coming off.
No, go on, tell me.
Mane's reaction, he was raging.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. He was raging,
I think he'd scored 2 goals at the time.
That's right, he was raging,
right. And I remember thinking, I don't like the look of that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As if there was a competition going on. Now, I'm only talking off the top of my head. I'm looking at things from what I see.
Yeah.
And morale is so
fragile. Fragile, as you say, yeah.
Fragile, and fragile to do it.
Yeah.
And I just get that feeling. You got Firmino there, you got Salah there, and they're not. I know you have had others, and we've spoken about them, but these are the three lads up front who are all fit, all ready to play, and definitely haven't been scoring goals. And I think there's something that could have happened, and that could happen, that destroys that team spirit, and certainly not destroys it, but harms it.
Yeah.
In that way.
Now, there's another thing with Klopp. He's been there 6 seasons, John. And the other thing, I suppose, is looking back at his time at Dortmund, in the sixth season, it kind of imploded. And they went and dropped to 15th in the league. And there was a very interesting piece in a magazine called The Atlantic, which I read, which is written by a German journalist. Now, we're not going to go mad on it, but he drew some parallels between what's happening now at Liverpool and what happened back then in Dortmund. They're not necessarily valid because he may have screwed up, as we all do, and learned his lesson. But one of the things you were saying, and I put it to you now, John, because we talked about this over the weekend between ourselves. You can't imagine Alex Ferguson, John, or Arsene Wenger, and this is the company we were talking about Klopp keeping when Liverpool were so impressive over the last 2 seasons and kicking on this year. You can't imagine Ferguson, the board coming to Ferguson and telling him what team to pick for a Champions League game to win, to get an extra 2.5 million. You can't imagine that kind of stuff happening, can you?
No.
And the other thing is the way, well, you pointed out to me yesterday, both Paisley and Ferguson kept refreshing the team. And you mentioned it there a few minutes ago. That needs to happen and hasn't really happened except for Jota.
Yeah, well, and Jota's been a perfect example of replenishment, Damon.
Yeah,
when he was playing and fit, there he was the best player for a few weeks because he'd be hungry and he hasn't had the things that the lads have had.
Yes,
so that's why it needs that. And as you say, over the history of it, I mean, I've done a little bit of homework over the weekend in Shankly's time, and I hope I'm not boring everybody here, but 64, 65, 66, Shankly won the league twice and the cup, right? He didn't win another trophy for another 7 years, Eamon.
Incredible, I didn't know that, yeah.
Yeah. Because he never replenished. Now, he might have been in a situation that he wasn't allowed to do it.
Yes.
We don't know. But he didn't do it. And it was only when he got Kevin Keegan and the likes of Toshak, that they picked up again. And they started to win trophies again because he renewed them. And then he finished, actually, he retired in 74, having won the league and the cup and I think the first cup. So he got back on top again, but he retired and handed over to Paisley. And Paisley then took on, but in his time, Eamon, over the years with Paisley, when he had a good team, and Keegan left, and then from then he obviously brought in Kenny Dalglish. Yes. But over the years, I'm just reading here: Dalglish, Souness, Hansen, Rush, Lawrenson, Craig Johnson, Ronnie Whelan, Stevie Nicol.
Yeah.
And then under Kenny Dalglish, players like John Barnes, Peter Beardsley, Ray Houghton, John Aldrich, that kept them winning and winning.
Yes.
But in one of the seasons, when they won something, they bring in nearly 2 players every year.
Yes.
And so did Ferguson.
Yes, he
now,
did.
Again, if I don't point, I'll just read you Ferguson's. When Ferguson won something for the first time, I think it was in 92, 93, they won the league for the first time with Brian Robson. Who did he bring in the summer?
Roy Keane.
Yep. Right?
Yes.
They didn't win anything that year. I think they won the double. Then they had a bad year. And what does he do? And Kanchelskis, bring in the kids.
Yes.
Signs Andy Cole at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? And then over the year, replenished. Terry Sheringham, Schmeichel, Dwight York, Jack Stam, Dennis Irwin, Nasseroy, Vidic, Everett. He always nearly bought every year, no matter what they won.
Yes.
2 players. Now, I think that's the ideal way of doing it. It brings in new blood, it brings in new competition.
Right.
And I think Jota shows that a little bit in Cup.
Yes.
Now, they had the power, Eamon, to do it.
Yes.
I'm not so sure. And I did read this article by Klopp only last week sometime.
Yes.
I'll try and look it up. I don't think he has that power, Eamon. Really, I don't. No matter what he's done.
That's right. I think the shape of the club, that those kind of major decisions that that have to be made and are expensive. Because even in Ferguson's last season, John, he brought in Robin van Persie and kind of half bombed out, Wayne Rooney. But he brought in Van Persie at the start of that season when he was going to leave.
Yeah.
They won the league, and Van Persie made a contribution. So there was a ruthlessness there, but there was also the power to make decisions.
Definitely. The powers. He did it every year, Eamon.
Yes.
Like and that's what Liverpool did at the Shankly when Shankly was coming near the end of his days.
Yes.
When Bob Paisley came in.
Yes.
Right. They had to sell Keegan because he was going. We actually won the European Cup, and then he transformed them. By the way, Keegan at that particular time.
He did, yeah.
Right. But who did he get? Kenny Dalglish. Might well have been a better player than Kevin Keegan. Kevin Souness, Hansen.
Yeah.
Over the years, Stevie Nicol. Over the years, and every time they won something, they brought in two new players. Because I know as a player, and you know as a player, Eamon, especially at least we won something. And the first year we won the league, he brings in Alan Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then somebody else, and Mick Jones, and Mick. And so all the time it was replaying, and it does give the lads in there a boost as well, and competition. Yes. And I think Jota this year is a perfect example to Liverpool. He was the best player before he got injured.
Yes.
Because it was new to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, John.
And that's all part of it. But none of us know, Eamon, Morris. But I think on Klopp's case, I definitely do not believe that he has the power that Shankly had or Paisley had, particularly Ferguson at their clubs.
Now, John. It's interesting, Graham Souness is someone I think we both respect and would listen to. I do anyway. I didn't hear you agree.
I think Graham is the best pundit on the television.
He is, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, and he didn't really know the other night how to break it down, and I was interested. The other guest wasn't great. It was Tom Heaton. He's a former Burnley goalkeeper, a very good goalkeeper, but he wasn't really. The problem with analysis on television now is you do need smart people to do it. They need to be articulate. They need to know the game, and you need to be asking the right questions. And afraid you'd wait an awful long time to get it. And that's an environment that would make Graham kind of very nervous. But the question, I suppose, is this: what's wrong, John? And where does he need to go now? Because they're going to be fighting now. Fenway Sports were interested in getting $2.5 million for beating Michelin. So they sent a team out, including Jota. He gets injured. He's out for another 6 weeks. Yeah. Even now, that's a 2-month job. Mm. If they don't qualify for the Champions League and finish in the top 4, with the run of fixtures they've got, starting with Tottenham on Thursday, John, away, they've got a hell of a run. They've got to play them all. They've got to play City. They've got to play Leicester. They've got to go to West Ham, which is not so easy now because David Moyes is getting results, which I know you'd be as pleased as I am for. He's a proper football man. And this isn't a blip, John, is it, for Liverpool? This is a crisis.
Well, it is a crisis, Eamon. Football changes so quickly from one season to the next, as we've seen already.
Yeah.
But it has to be right from the top. You hit the nail on the head there when you were talking about when I think Kenny Dalglish, particularly Ferguson, you have to concentrate on Ferguson. Ferguson was in total control of that club, Eamon.
Yes.
Who came in, who came out, a team that he went with the young lads at the time, and everybody thought he was mad. And it proved to be right. And over the years, getting to the players in, there was no doubt.
With the support of the chief executive at the time, David Gill, who was David Gill's very serious guy, backed him to the hilt all the time.
To the hilt. Yeah. So they had the power to do it. The manager has to have the power to do it. Now, I didn't realise, till you said it there, that Klopp was in that position to play that particular match for $2.5 million.
Yes.
That's serious.
I think
that's
it's
really
grave.
serious.
Yes.
Now, if they're talking about $2.5 million, and nowadays if you're buying the top players for 40 and 50 million, what chance has he got?
They want $2.5 million to let you talk to them. No, I mean, there's no chance if that's the way. But Fenway Sports,
I feel I would have sympathy for him in that case as a manager, because the thing is, Eamon, he's not going to come out publicly and say it. You know what I mean? What happens with managers? He's
publicly
admitted a
admitted
bit about that situation.
that it wasn't
but he's
down
not going
to
to tell
him.
the whole story. I mean, do you know what I mean? He's not going to say, "I'm not." They can't do that.
Yeah.
They can't do that because they have to. The players have to believe he's in charge. The fans have to believe he's in charge. That's the way it is. It's a very difficult situation for a manager to be in that. I think he had to say what he had to say because it was so bad in what he did to get £2.5 million in. But the fact is, he's not in Ferguson's position. That is dangerous for him.
Right.
Because when you're in that position as a manager, you have to tell a few little porkies about it. No, I didn't need any players. I didn't want to do this and that. Because if you say, no, I didn't, I'm not in charge of it, the fans will think, well, who's the boss here?
Yes.
The players will think, who's the boss here?
Yeah, well, that would be my point. I'd just like to put that point to you, John. When they were playing Midtjylland in Denmark, it's travelling, it's a game, you can get hurt. As we know, Diogo Jota did get hurt, out for 2 months or more. Now, I think the coach's first job, especially given this season and all this, the sort of the amount of games and stress players are under now, it's unreal. Your first job is to protect your players, and to protect them from having to play too much. To protect them in every way that you can, and to look out for them. So if a guy from Fenway Sports comes, or if a suit comes down to you or office and he says, we have to win this game in Midtjylland to get $2.5 million, you say, go and fuck yourself. I've got a team, I've got my players down there. They sweated blood for this club. They've delivered the Premier League. They've delivered the Champions League. I'm not playing those guys in Midtjylland. You defend your players. Right?
Yes. Well, you have to, Eamon, because in my experience with a player now, with Don Revie or any of them, Matt Busby, and the manager has to be the man.
Yes.
In other words, you have to believe that he's in charge.
As a player.
As it happened.
As a player.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. If you don't, he loses everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I was only a short term at Manchester, but I knew Busby was the boss. When I went to Leeds with Don was the boss.
Yes.
Definitely the boss.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to believe.
Yeah.
You have to believe this. I'm playing for this guy. You see, I know that we had a little bit of trouble with the directors, and our attitude was they can piss off.
Yeah,
we're not playing for them.
Yes, exactly.
We're playing for them. So you have to believe, and a lot of managers have to really, really play a big game, Eamon.
Yes,
to make you believe. Sometimes when they're not in charge, that I am the man.
Yes.
You come to me. If you're in the team, you're in the team. Or come to me about money or whatever. I'm the man. I'm running this club.
Yes. Now
it doesn't happen. Now, in what can happen with the Liverpool lads, I mean, it could well happen that they know this.
Yes. Yes. And that
morale, as I said before, morale is a very, very, very hard thing to define.
Yeah.
They could say, well, he's not the man.
No. And
he's not really the man. I've seen clubs, I've heard of clubs, Eamon, where the players go to because you'd say to them, well, who is it? Or Mr. So, well, I'll go and see him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you're gone.
You're finished.
You have to believe, first of all, the manager, you have to be he's in charge, and you have to believe he's going to be there forever.
Yeah. Okay, John. It's fascinating talking to you, and from your own experience, and we know from, what greatness in a coach is, because we've seen it. Wenger.
Yes.
Ferguson, of course, going back, in the Liverpool context, the Paisley, Bill Shankly, but the suits can sometimes get you in the end. And in Bill Shankly's case, they did get him, John. He's the man. We wouldn't be talking about Liverpool if it wasn't for Bill Shankly and what he created there. And when he offered his resignation one time too often, they accepted it. So the bastards, and Don Revie wasn't treated particularly well either, was he?
No, they resented him, Eamon.
Yeah,
that's what happened. It can happen in clubs because the directors think they're the bosses. They're paying you, so we're in charge, and that was definitely the case. I mean, if you go back to Don Revie, You know, people think they all got it. Don Revie didn't get on well with the directors. Didn't like him.
No.
And when they didn't try to keep him either, Eamon. So a lot of the theory about Don Revie and the directors.
Yeah.
I mean, Don Revie recommended me for the job.
Yeah.
Right at that particular time.
And they didn't like
turned
you.
it down. They turned down that position.
Suggestion.
So when we got it, I want to say to people, this is the resentment they had with Don, right? Who was the last person Don would have picked to take over Leeds United? Brian Clough.
Brian Clough. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Who did they give it to?
Brian Clough.
And everybody else would think they loved Don They didn't love Don.
No, didn't at all. Okay.
And Don did what he did. I think they were glad to get rid of him, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And you.
But that's football. That's the way it is. And in Klopp's position, he could well be in not quite that position, but in a position where he's not quite in control of the situation, which the players think he is.
Right. And that's something for our listeners who are interested in football to observe when we see Liverpool now. They're embarking on a really tough series of games to get themselves back in contention to defend their Premier League title, and of course, in the worst case scenario, if they weren't to qualify for the Champions League, that would be great. John, just a final thought: they play Leipzig, who knocked Manchester United out of the Champions League. In the Champions League now, that's looking not too far ahead. I mean, it's next month. They need to get their shit together in a big way over these next few couple of months. And the things we've been talking about, the subterranean moves of Mo Salah, perhaps, of Klopp not having the authority and the power that he really needs, that you do need as a coach. I also note, and you were right to draw attention to Mane leaving the pitch against Crystal Palace. And I love Mane. You said earlier he wasn't really doing so. I love Mane. I thought he got a bit brassed off against Burnley the other night in the second half as well, because he does show his feelings. He's a terrific lad. Yeah. Terrific player, John.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. All great players, these lads. Yeah. But they're all human. Yeah. They all have different feelings.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. Like when Mane's coming off the pitch and Salah's coming on, I've just scored 2 goals. I want to get my hat trick, and you still have that competition there, Eamon, and that's why morale is so different. We can't see it, you know. But it's definitely all the footballers we know. Eamon, changes from year to year, changes from month to month. And despite the fact that Liverpool did what they did last year, this is a different season. This is a different time. Circumstances change all the time, and it's a very, very delicate situation. Football.
Just as we're talking, John, news is coming in that Frank Lampard may well be on the way out at Chelsea, and that Thomas Tuchel, who's the German coach was the German coach at PSG before Pochettino arrived there last week. Thomas Tuchel may be taking over from Frank Lampard. So there is another English-born coach and Chelsea legend. Looks like he's going to be out of work for a while, although he has done pretty good work. John, we're really grateful to you for talking to us this morning.
Okay, Eamon.
I would like to thank John, one of the great players and one of the great thinkers about football, who we're very lucky to have.